Today, my next-door pregnant neighbor knocked on my door. Around 7 p.m. today, I heard some knocking on my door. I opened it, and it was my next-door pregnant neighbor. She was, I think, in her 7th or 8th month. She was holding a small plate in her hand. In a very shy voice, she asked me if I can give her some of whatever I was cooking because she liked the smell. I think pregnant women sometimes have strong cravings and they cannot resist it. Anyway, she was shy and apologized a lot for her request since we don't know each other. I laughed and told her it was okay. I was cooking a traditional meal from my country, and the recipe has olive oil, garlic, jalapenos, and some spices. I think the smell was nice. I gave her some of my dinner, then she left. I watched her walking home like a cute little penguin who's happy with her successful little hunting. I felt really happy too for some reason. It can be completely overwhelming when you get those pregnancy cravings. Nothing in that moment is as important as what is needed. It was very sweet of you to share. I feel like we don't hear about or see many things like this anymore. Just genuine human kindness. I fake an accent at my job. My heart is pounding writing this because I literally haven't told anyone this. So I worked at this one store and I worked on the sales floor. But before all that, I was just one person interviewing for a position at the store. Before I arrived for my interview, a friend of mine dared me to interview in a British accent. I said I'd do it only if they paid me, and to my surprise, they sent me like $10 through Venmo, which was more than enough for me. I went into the interview with the mindset that I wasn't going to get hired, and they inevitably hired me on the spot, accent and all. I was nervous because I had already talked to a whole bunch of higher-ups with the accent and decided to just go with it, thinking it was only going to be a summer job. I was so wrong. It's been like 7 months that I've been working there, and I still use the accent to this day. When people ask me where I'm from, I just tell them my hometown because I have several Brits from that town whom I grew up with. The accent hasn't really posed a problem until now because my BF is friends with one of my coworkers, so I'm gonna have to find the right time to come clean. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I mean, honestly, pretty damn impressive to go 7 months and not be discovered that it's a fake accent because I just did like a minute of it and yeah, that was awful. It was terrible. Bet a coworker that you can fake an American accent for the rest of the year for $300. Honestly, not a terrible idea. It might get you out of it scot-free. Fake a head injury and go back to normal. This post is hilarious. Sorry, OP. Apparently, a kid in the States acquired a British accent solely from watching Peppa Pig. Hey, I mean, I've heard stranger things. I photoshopped every photo of my mom. My mom has really had a hard time the past few years. When she entered menopause, she gained weight, and no matter how much she works out or what diet she tries, she can't drop it. She is a wonderful person, beautiful inside and out, but I could tell it was really taking a toll on her. So I started, lightly, photoshopping pictures I take of her before I send them to anyone or print them. I just nip a little here and there, slight reshaping, and smoothing out of a few wrinkles. Nothing drastic, but enough. Since I have started this, she has started acting more confidently and has stopped making negative remarks about pictures she's in. She loves being in pictures with everyone again. It has really helped. I have not told anyone and never will. Well, you did just tell a lot of people anonymously on the internet, so hopefully your mom doesn't figure that out. I'm so conflicted on this. Intent is so endearing, but if she ever found out, just really keep this one to yourself. I really don't want to imagine the aftermath of the mom finding out about this because that could be like world ending. I hate my brain damaged sister. I can't believe I'm actually typing this out right now. It's making it feel very real. And before you say it, I know. I am probably one of the worst human beings on this planet. Around a year ago, my older sister, 27, widowed mother of 2 boys, 8 and 5, decided to, against every single warning made, get drunk as shit and wreck her car into a rock embankment outside of our town. She was life-flighted to an ICU, spent weeks in a coma, and awoke in vegetative state. In the past year, she has slowly began to see some progress. Because of this accident, I was forced to quit my job, leave my friends, move across the country, and back in with my parents to help take care of her and raise my nephews. I love them dearly, but I have never wanted to have kids, especially not forced upon me like this. She had the mind of a child now, argues about silly things, can't cook for herself, cries over everything, can't read, memory loss, partially paralyzed on her right side, has aphasia, and a list of other problems with me as her caregiver. She tell me how happy she is to be alive after such a bad car accident. I want to scream that I wish she would have died. Her boys are a wreck after losing their dad recently and now having an effed up mom. My parents are spending all of their retirement savings for her treatments. I can see the years getting shaved off my my dad and mom from the stress. I don't treat her any differently. I still tell her stories and laugh with her and do my best, but I hate the way I feel when I look at her. Did you even think about your boys when you got in your car? She is smiling and completely ignorant to the pain she has caused to my entire family. So I guess that's it. That's my confession. I have a deep, dark hatred and resentment for someone I love, and I will never let her know. Oh, yeah, I don't really know how I can respond to something like that. That's really heavy. Damn. That's exactly what I said. That's all I can say. Damn. My dad passed away this morning. He was riding his motorcycle to work early this morning. At around 2:30 a.m., he crashed his bike. We're thinking he had a heart attack, and that's what caused him to crash. In high school, about 13 years ago, I had to do a paper for English class. The topic was, write a paper on either a personal hero of yours or something that influenced you growing up, and then presented it to the class. I wrote my paper on my dad. I wrote about how much I loved him, how much he cared for me, his 15 years in the army, and how he was raising me to be a successful adult. I probably spent more time on that than any other paper I did. I was proud of it, and happy I got to read it aloud. Later that evening, I mentioned the paper to my dad, told him we could do it on either a hero or something that influenced us. He asked what I did mine on. I was embarrassed, so I told him I did it on a band. The last 13 years, I've regretted that. The last 13 years, I've wanted to tell him what I did the paper on. Just 2 days ago, it came across my mind again. Dad, I wrote that paper on you. You're my hero. Always were and always will be. I'm sorry I didn't tell you how much I loved you and how much you meant to me. Thank you for always being there. I love you, Dad. Oh my God, that is so heartbreaking. I am so sorry for your loss. He knows, man. He knows. I'm dying, but haven't told anyone. I was diagnosed with cancer a little over 2 weeks ago after a regular checkup. Turns out I have a tumor on my colon that has spread to other areas, liver and lungs so far, and will require extensive chemo and surgery for any chance to live longer than 8 months. I'm not having any treatment, and I haven't told my wife because she'll only pressure me to get the treatment, which results in months of pain and suffering for a relatively small chance. Instead, I'm making sure our last few months together are filled with only happy memories. I'm starting work later and finishing earlier each day to make her breakfast in bed and take her on dates in the evenings. My landlord I rent my workshop from has agreed to let me run my business rent-free for the next 6 months, which means significantly less financial stress and I can save a lot more, so she has something to carry her over afterwards. I hope she'll forgive me for taking this path. Dude, that's rough. You need to tell her. Life isn't a movie. Your wife and immediate family deserve to know. While I think I understand the sentiment of wanting to keep it a secret and pass peacefully, you need to tell people, otherwise they're not going to be prepared, and that's just going to hurt them even more, I think. I've realized I detest my boyfriend. We've been together almost 3 years. We live together. I support us 100%. In the time we've been together, he's worked maybe 2 months. He's depressed and anxious, and he steals all the oxygen and joy out of every room. He never wants to go anywhere, but then complains that we never go anywhere. I got him an interview at my work, a moderately well-paid entry-level position. He refused to go, saying he wasn't ready, then spends time complaining about not having a job. You get the idea. Everything in our lives revolves around him and his moods. He cries, yells, or just sighs incessantly. There's no laughter or happiness in our home. I walk on eggshells all the time. I dread coming home from work. He grabbed me a few days ago and shook me so hard I'm bruised on my upper arms. The apartment is in my name, but he literally has nowhere to go because he has no friends, and he refuses to contact his family. So he'd be homeless, and I can't do that to him, or any human really. I fantasize about being alone all the time, like only cooking or shopping or doing anything just for myself. It would be incredible to be able to breathe again. His birthday was last week, and I saved up for a month to get him something related to his hobby. When I gave it to him, he said, "I just told you, I didn't want to do this anymore. What were you thinking?" I think at that point, any love I still felt for him just died. He doesn't cook, clean, care for his dog, or do anything but play video games. I'm trapped in a prison, and I just don't really care what happens to me anymore. I don't want to die, but I wouldn't be upset if I didn't wake up tomorrow, if that makes sense. I know what I should do, but I'm just a dumb bee. Thanks for reading. Typing it out helps. Honestly, it seems like you're very entitled to just kick him out because you own the apartment, you pay all the bills, you do everything. Get that mooch out. This won't get better. You have one life. Live yours. Dump him and move on. Leave him like a mama bird would do, and he will find his way. Why I am Aunt Susan, the karma farming Facebook fiend. My Reddit username is coolgirlonthetrain. I'm not really cool, but I commute daily on a train, so it's partially correct. I am an English woman, living in England. About 2 years ago, the fate that is called life landed an American guy in my local pub. My first impression was that he was different and a little odd. I was drawn to this oddness. It was cool and exciting, and it brings out my personality and inner quirks. About a year ago, we have become the best of friends. It's platonic and it's amazing. It's a friendship like no other. Well, of course, being a typically reserved Englishwoman, I had never heard of Reddit. The guy, who shall be known as Mr. X, obviously is a hardcore Redditor and has an established account. He told me about Reddit, suggesting I set up an account and bet that I could never achieve the same amount of karma as him. I think it was more so the smug grin on his face as he was looking down at me that had the greatest impact and made me more so determined. What I don't think he realized is that I am incredibly competitive with the determination and heart of a lion. The prize, if I did, would be a trip to Canada. I had never been west, so for me this would be incredible. This was 3 weeks ago. Over the last 3 weeks, I have frantically posted all sorts of stuff in an eager attempt to work out what works. I have been called every name under the sun. Karma Farmer, Aunt Susan, and to colloquially go back to Facebook. I have even been requested to stay on my side of the pond. This is my confession. This is why I have been behaving like Aunt Susan, the karma farming Facebook fiend. I apologize, and if you're interested, I will of course keep you posted. Confessions of the not so cool girl on the train. I don't know why, but I feel like this is a really cute setup. This could be a rom-com for sure. 40k karma in 3 weeks? Damn. Edit. Another 40k in 1 day? Keep being a karma LMAO. Yeah, I mean, clearly it's working out. Hopefully you're going to Canada. When I was 16, I took my family pet to the vet, found out he was terminally ill, and never told anyone. I'm the eldest of 4 kids in a family of 6, and growing up, we had a beautiful albino chinchilla named Dusty. Dusty was an awesome little pet to have as a kid. Very sweet, never bit anyone, loved to cuddle and run around digging tunnels in the bed sheets. He had this really big cage in our guest bedroom that was connected to my room, and every time someone would walk past his cage, he would run to the gate hoping to be taken out. If you opened the gate, he would just hop right into your hand. Anyway, great pet. So about 3 days after I got my driver's license as a 16-year-old, I noticed that one of Dusty's eyes were tearing a little bit, which I hadn't seen happen before. Feeling like a brand new adult with my new driver's license, I decided to take it upon myself to bring him to the vet and see what was up. So I put him into a brown paper grocery bag with his favorite blanket, made some air holes, stapled it shut, and strapped him into the passenger seat of my family's van. Fast forward maybe a half hour, and I'm sitting in the vet office holding Dusty, feeling like the most responsible adult ever. The vet is an exotic animals vet and takes a look at him, then asks to do an x-ray. So she sedates him a little, does the x-ray, hands him back to me, and leaves the room. Adult level 9,000 as I sit petting him until he wakes back up. So vet comes back in and sits next to me on the little bench in the checkup room and starts petting him in my lap. She tells me how wonderful he is and how lucky I am to have such a great little pet, asking me my favorite memories of him. All this. So we are talking, and finally I ask her something like, okay, so how much do chinchilla eye drops cost, because I've got to get going, and she smiles gently, saying something like, I wish eye drops could fix this. She gives me a hug and starts to explain. Dusty was not bred responsibly and had some kind of internal deformity involving the roots of his teeth, putting pressure on his eyes and brain. This would eventually cause an early death. I couldn't believe it. I remember starting to cry and putting Dusty back in his grocery bag with his blanket and asking if the vet had a stapler I could use to close it again. I paid cash to the receptionist from my babysitting money and got into my car crying all the way home. When I got home, I sat in the car for a while in the garage, trying to gather myself as Dusty chewed on his bag. Looking back, I'm not really sure why, but in the car I decided not to tell my family the news. The vet said Dusty wasn't in pain despite his tearing eye, and we wouldn't have to put him down. She didn't know how long exactly he had left, but guessed maybe a year. I guess I figured I didn't want my family to be sad every time they played with him or passed by his cage knowing his time was limited. I wanted the rest of his little life to be normal. Eventually, I brought him back in the house and put him in his cage. I went later that day to Petco and bought rodent eye drops as a cover-up and proudly told my father that night how I brought Dusty to the vet to check his eye and lied saying the doctor gave me eye drops and told me eye irritation is common in chinchillas. Dusty lived more 3 years after that, 2 years longer than the vet had expected. He passed away just shy of his 10th birthday. On the morning he passed, I told my dad what had actually happened at the vet. He told me I was so much more of an adult than I knew. Honestly, I think that was probably the best decision you could make. None of the family really worrying, and you got 2 extra years compared to what the vet told you. I read that as Chihuahua instead of Chinchilla, and when you said you put Dusty in a brown paper bag, I was a bit concerned, lol. Admittedly, when I first read through it, I did read it as Chihuahua, and I was very nervous, but I'm glad I figured it out. IDK, why I'm crying in the club, RN. No, it's valid. You should cry. Maybe not in the club, but okay, just start crying. I cheated on my husband with a married man, which resulted in the breakup of both our marriage. Well, long story short, I was in a horrible marriage with my alcoholic husband. He was hanging out with swingers and got a drunken BJ while he was stationed in Korea. I was back home in America. At some point, he said things to me that broke my heart into pieces. So I went alone to prove myself I am worthy of appreciation from a man. Found a man, and he was married and in a failing marriage. They had not had sex in 2 years and were sleeping in different beds. I just wanted a male friend to appreciate me, but we ended up falling in love. Of course, we carried on with the affair. And of course, a spouse got suspicious and had a falling out, and it contributed to the breakup of the marriage. I fell completely out of love with my husband before even started the affair. Once I met a new man, there was no turning back. It is about to be 3 years that we've been together, and he has been one of the best things that has happened in my life. We are soulmates, best friends. I can't tell anyone this story, but I had to confess. Ooh, yeah, sure, it worked out. That's not okay, though. I don't know, that's bad. Military couples and cheating on each other. Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. Word to the wise. If you're gonna cheat, then cheat with someone in a relationship so both of y'all got something to lose. It's a pretty good point, I guess. 2 cheaters got together. I'm sure that will work out good. I cheated on every Spanish test I took in high school. So I am not a fan of cheating and have never cheated in any other class. When I was in high school, I was forced to take Spanish to graduate. I am not good with language, and living in the Southwest, I was the only student in the class who didn't already know Spanish. The teacher was therefore unsympathetic and refused to slow down and help. To pass, I needed a solution. I realized on her test days, she would have us use our own sheet of paper. I would make my study sheet on the page before the one I would use for the test and press so hard that I would have it transferred onto the test sheet. This bumped my grades from F's to A's. Teacher suspected me pulling shenanigans, but never caught me. I feel bad, and as an instructor, never let students use their own paper on tests. Whoa, slow down, buddy, okay? Cheating is all a part of the game of school. At least that's how I learned it from Naruto. For my foreign language credit, I took Spanish 1. I was already fluent in Spanish, but acted as if I didn't know any and just skated by. You shouldn't cheat, but what else do you expect teenagers to do when you put them into crappy situations with crappy teachers? I hide my mother's iPhone charger. My brother and sister are both really rude and mock me for a lot of my personal choice, which have nothing to do with them. Considering I only see them for a few scattered days in the year and they still choose to spend most of the time insulting me, I get really upset. They both have Apple like our mother, who they live with, and I have Android. I often hide my mother's chargers. She has so many everywhere, in her car, laptop, bathroom, living room, kitchen, etc., so that when she discovers them gone, she blames them. She then spends the next few hours furious with both of them and ignoring their requests. Gets me out of the spotlight and no one suspects me since I don't have any Apple products. Okay, at first I did not know where your title could be going, but oh my god, this is genius. You're a criminal mastermind. Replace them with broken chargers so it gets her even more mad. You are a diabolical genius. Carry on. I just gave a suburban mom the middle finger and it felt so empowering. I'm a 16-year-old boy. I live in the suburbs. Tonight we have a big parade in the downtown of our city, so tons of cars are driving there and back. I dropped off my parents so they could drink and had to take the neighborhood route back home since all the main streets were packed. I went 20 on the neighborhood roads since there were people and parked cars everywhere. I noticed a white minivan was riding my ass and I was a little annoyed but not angry yet. Then we got to the stoplight and they tried to cross the double yellow lines just to be ahead of me in the left turn lane, but I sped ahead because I was not having that crap. So we were both waiting to go left and I had the longest yellow arrow of my life. Also, everyone was going where we came from, so there was not a single gap I could have went left on. But Mrs. Everything has to be perfect for me because my husband is rich honked 3 times and kept raising her hand and acting like I'm an idiot for not risking my effing life to make a left turn. So as soon as I got that green arrow, I drove right next to her and mouthed a glorious, "F*** you, complete with a middle finger. The look on her face was priceless. She looked so offended and shocked that I would use vulgar language in her little Christian suburb. I usually try to be civil and not get on the bad side of people with more authority than me, but dang, that was liberating. I'm so sick of rich moms doing whatever they want without any consequences, so to upset her like that just felt great. See, I wish I could have stories like this. I need more opportunities to be the mean person, but it's kind of justified. I feel satisfied just knowing this happened. Are you serious? Right in front of my little Christian neighborhood? Ah, yes. Driving really brings out a whole new side of people. It is a little bizarre how different people act when they're driving. Like, some people just go ballistic for nothing. In high school, I broke into the mailbox to get my report card. When I was in the 11th grade, I rushed home quickly because I knew I had a bad report card and knew that my mom would be home soon. I had a tough childhood due to my abusive mother, so I knew it would be bad. However, upon arriving to the front of my apartment was the usual bunch of tenants who liked to sit outside and talk with each other. This worried me because I wouldn't be able to get my report card with them around. I felt that they would lecture me and tell my mom. I stepped up in my unit, looking out the window, waiting for them to disperse, yet they never did. So, out of desperation, I took a spatula, hidden in a brown Ralph's paper bag, LOL, and went downstairs. When the group of older tenants seemed to not be paying attention to me, I began to nervously proceed with my plan in desperation. As I saw the edge of my report card under the mailbox door, I quickly tried to retrieve it but was unsuccessful. Suddenly, I was caught by C, a 60-something-year-old man. He looked at me and said, "Hun, the f*** you doing?" All the other adults turned to look at me. Finally, I confessed to what was happening, that I wanted my report card so my mom wouldn't see, and explained that she was on her way home. I was expecting punishment from the group. They stared at me, then nodded. All of them began to help me. They all knew how my mom was. A mid-30s woman who lived next door, went to keep a lookout for my mom's car. C couldn't get the mailbox open, so he called J over. Suddenly, J, a 40-something-year-old man who lived a unit over from me, quickly took out his pocket knife and busted the mailbox open. I couldn't believe what was happening, but I grabbed my report card regardless. How was I going to explain a broken mailbox to my mom? She was obviously going to connect the dots, right? The others in the group hurried to try and close the busted mailbox the best they could. We were able to close it, but I knew once my mom attempted to open her mailbox and couldn't open it, that I would be doomed. Within 5 minutes of that altercation, my mom came home to see me in front with the group of older tenants and immediately proceeded to get her mail. All of us were silent. She couldn't open her mailbox. Immediately after she attempted to open the box, the live-in manager showed up. My heart was pounding to death as he began watching my mom struggle to open the mailbox. Luckily for me, without a second thought, he went on to say, "We have gangsters in this area. A lot of this kind of stuff happens. Don't worry though, we'll get it fixed." My mom accepted that explanation and I never said another word of it for years. I did get better grades though. The tenants had made me promise to in exchange for their support. This is like a beautiful story. I don't know, I just love the idea of these people coming together to help this kid in a time of need. That's so nice. That's so awesome. I love those tenants. That wholesome moment when you got away with committing a federal crime. But seriously, good for you for not wasting your lucky moment. You made it well deserved for yourself. I love this. What an awesome village to have your back. I wish they still sent report cards in the mail. Now the school automatically emails them to your parents. And that led to many a nights of yelling at my household. I steal my housemates' food and nobody ever suspects me because they think I'm vegan. I was vegan when we started living together, but I gave up since then and I started stealing anything I can get my hands on. They never suspect me because they think I wouldn't eat those items. Never been even close to being caught. I always make sure to cook when nobody is home or to hide packaging and wrappers in my trash. It's more about the fact that I can do it without consequences that makes me do it. Nobody complained about missing food items more than a couple of times, so I don't think I am that much of a nuisance. It's still not the best thing to do. do? You probably should, you don't have to tell them, but start buying your own food, maybe? When I had a roommate stealing my food, I started putting ghost pepper flakes on everything. It stopped real fast. That almost sounds evil, but I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. You are the enemy of the people. A rat is a rat no matter which way you shake it. How about you grab a bunch of groceries to replace stolen food, apologize, and come out as an omnivore? I agree with the first part. Maybe you don't apologize, just buy more groceries and tell people, yeah, I don't know, I'm not vegan anymore. It's probably easier that way. I broke the Wi-Fi when my parents refused to get better internet. We have terrible internet right now, the kind that makes you wait until everyone is out of the house to try and play games, and I have a sister, so even when my parents are at work, I can't play. Our internet is so bad that I couldn't send emails to my teachers with homework, and I got punished for it. My parents refused to get better internet using BS excuses like, it's too expensive, you will be on it all the time, and my favorite, our neighbors complained about the guy that installed the new cables. It's BS because we are on an old plan and it's cheaper to switch. I'm pretty active and there is no proof bad installation guy exists. So I learned from a Reddit post that you can give devices priority. Bingo. So after looking into it for a while and spending longer getting into the controls of the modem, I give priority to Ethernet devices. At least that's what I think it was. I was messing about in the settings and the Wi-Fi doesn't work now. Feeling quite proud, I go and play my games. It is slightly understandable for the homework aspect, but I do, I don't know. It's hard to tell who's right and wrong in this. Honestly, fair play. You're being punished for not sending in homework you were trying to send in but can't due to extremely poor internet connection. Just play your games after the work is submitted. Slow internet is more pain in the butt than not having internet. My cat died 2 years ago, and I kept this secret to his grave. When we first adopted him, we had no idea that our cat was going to grow up to a 31-inch long, 23-pound beast, so his name quickly was changed to Bubba. Bubba was an aggressive cuddler. Anytime you were reading a book, he would come over and plant himself directly between your head and your book. Several years before he died, there was a night where my wife and I were laying in bed. I honestly have no idea what I ate that day, but I had a case of particularly noxious gas. I happened to let a silent one go right as Bubba jumped on the foot of the bed. He walked up to the head of the bed. Every step he took helped push the fumes out towards the top of the covers. He reached the pillows and decided to curl up right between my wife and I, with his butt conveniently pointed towards her. It was then that the fumes got out and my wife instinctively blamed Bubba. She grabbed him off the bed, ejected him from the room, and closed the door. As she spent the next couple minutes complaining about the cat, I couldn't say anything. It was all I could do to keep from laughing about the cat getting the blame. 2 years ago, Bubba died of a heart attack. He was walking across the family room and fell over dead instantly. I will always remember you, and I will never forget the time you took one for the team. Is that really taking one for the team? Because if anything, it sounds like you abandoned the cat to have the guilt. This is the cat of legends. There will be religions about him in 2,000 years. R.I.P. Bubba. Way to take one for the team. Brought a tear of laughter to my eye, possibly similar to Bubba's omission. I let my son believe he's a dinosaur because it helps him sleep better. My 2.5-year-old thinks he's a dinosaur, like 24/7 acts like a dino. It started at about a year old when I made him a dinosaur hoodie for Halloween. He started pretending a lot and roaring at everyone. Then in transitioning from crib to bed, he picked out dinosaur sheets and it's all dinosaurs all the time from then on. He roars constantly and at total strangers. He has a whole dinosaur family of toys that follows him everywhere. He walks like a dino and tells me every morning what new species he is and gets really upset when I forget today's type. At first, I thought it was cute. Then after a week, I got concerned. Now, after a couple months, I've fully embraced it. With an active 2-year-old, it's sometimes hard to get him to calm down and go to bed. But since the dinosaur awakening, he's gone to bed flawlessly so long as I pretend he is a long neck traveling to the Great Valley. Land Before Time reference for those that don't know. I spin this big story and he closes his eyes and gets so excited. It's his favorite thing in the world. My favorite thing in the world is hearing a quiet, whispered "rawr" in response to my "good night, I love you." He'll probably be upset one day when he discovers I've used his overactive imagination to trick him into sleeping, eating broccoli, walking faster on our hikes, etc. On the other hand, I have 2 months worth of super cute videos of him speaking dinosaur, so I think I'm okay with it. Lucky! I'm pretty sure my 4-year-old thinks she's teenager. Wait until his future wife one day serves him broccoli and a deep memory is awakened. I used the gas card of an old job for 3 years to fuel up my car. Some years ago, I spent a year or so between jobs. One of these was installing/removing insulation from people's attics. It was a complete crap job, but my buddy got me in the door and it actually did pay well. I ended up being there maybe 2 months tops. We worked locations within a 100-mile radius of the company site, so one of our daily routines was to fuel the truck up on the way out of the shop at the trucker fuel stop around the corner. We worked in teams of either 2 or 3 on job sites, and all of the employees were given fuel cards, so there was never any excuse for why we would be in a situation where we couldn't get gas. A few weeks after quitting, I realized I had forgotten to give them the card back. Another few weeks after that, I was driving in the general location one weekend and just for shits and giggles, went to the fuel stop to see if the card still worked. What do you know? It did. I then decided I was gonna wait until the next time I needed gas, then go to that same stop to fuel up again. I figured if I only used that location like all the other employees do, it wouldn't raise much suspicion when the bill came. This went on for about 3 years until one day the card stopped working. I confessed to my buddy shortly after that what I had been doing. He told me that all the fuel cards were basically just copies of the same card on one account, so they had no way of distinguishing any one specific usage. Also, the shop went out of business, so that's why the card stopped working. You know, one could say that you're the cause of the business going out, but also whatever. They gave you the card, they didn't shut it down. Who's to blame? Your fueling up all those years was what finally put them under. I personally knew a guy who did this, got busted, sued, and charged. Let's just hope that doesn't happen to our pal over there. Just let him get away with it, you know? Lied to get out of a school project and ended up stuck in therapy for a year. When I was a senior in high school, in the beginning of the school year, we had to do a project where we had to do a presentation and show how to do something step by step. I picked making chocolate chip cookies, so when I was going to present, I had to show a step by step on how to make them. So I had to bring in milk, eggs, bowls, etc. We had 3 weeks to plan for the project, but it was the day I had to present and I didn't prepare or bring anything. So as soon as I got to school, I went into my English class and told my teacher I didn't have anything because mom and dad got into a fight 2 nights before and my dad kicked us out and we've been living in a hotel. She said it was okay and that she would give me credit for my written part. The next week, I was in 3rd period. I get called into the office. The school therapist was there and told me she wanted to talk to me. She asked me if everything was okay at home and I didn't want to have to do my project and get caught lying, so I kept with the story that my dad kicked us out. I started crying and the therapist told me she would like to see me once a week. So I went for my whole senior year once a week to therapy to avoid doing one project. Okay, I'm not saying you should do this because it's not like the smartest idea, but if you make a bit, you've gotta commit.
Let's have a group therapy session with your folks.
Oh no, nightmare. I'd drop out. I couldn't. Bro, all you had to do was make cookies. You had 3 weeks. Props on the commitment though. That's the true life lesson. Honestly, like cookies are not that hard to make. Like maybe takes 2 hours. It's not hard. You should go into acting. You know, since it did pay off, maybe you are pretty good. I always BS my way through school, and most recently college. I've always hated reading long text when I'm not interested on the topic. So when I was in high school and the teachers gave an assignment related to reading, like in English class when we had to read Macbeth, Of Mice and Men, etc., I would just read chapter summaries and do the respective essays and tests. My lowest grade was like a B, and so on. Or this other time when we were watching a documentary for social studies class and the teacher told us that we had to write the key ideas in a piece of paper. I remember that it was boring, so I was just on my phone, and every once in a while I would write some ideas that I heard. I didn't write more than 10, and when my teacher read it, he said, "This is one of the best summaries I've read." Then someone told me that this would not work in college when you really had to study. Nope, still works. I'm taking a communications class where we have to read a long and boring textbook and write a 1-page summary in our own words. For this, I just Google the title of every chapter and get some ideas from different websites and write my summary. So far, I've earned A's in these summaries and another A in the first exam. Sometimes I regret it because I know I'm not really learning anything, but I believe studying shouldn't be the only thing you care for in life. So I'm not going to stress out about the classes I don't like, and that's not required for my degree. And I'm going to continue doing this for as long as I can. Once again, it's not the most advised tactic, but you know, if it works, it works. The only time this may be detrimental to you is when you start taking classes directly related to your major and are out of your intro classes. Otherwise, work smart, not hard. Well, you're taking a communications class. That's why it's still working. I did the same stuff in high school too, but now I'm in engineering and it really does not work. Just wait till you start work. That's where the real BS kicks in. In 5th grade, I pushed a girl in a monkey cage enclosure and ripped the skin of her arms off. I'm sorry, what? I attended an elementary school that is near to a small park where there were about 10 exotic animals like hawks, snakes, and monkeys. It's basically a small zoo. We usually wait there for our school service to arrive. We were just sitting around the birdcage-like enclosure of this aggressive monkey that we're making fun of and waiting for the school service to arrive. When the school service arrived, we all stood up and raced to the school service front seat. I knew that I won't be first, so I pushed the girl who was in front of me. She tripped close to the cage. The monkey got startled and went crazy instantly. The monkey grabbed her arm and ripped her skin off in one bite. It is the gnarliest thing I ever saw. Her face turned pale white, I think because of the shock and loss of blood. We carry her out of the park while she and some of us were stained with blood. An old guy who was working in the park sees us and immediately carried her and called an ambulance. The day after that, the monkey is not in the park anymore, and we have a new school service driver. Oh my god, I get it's an accident, but oh, that is the worst possible accident. Jesus. Yeah, Jesus is right. Monkeys are effing scary. I've never understood why some people find them cute. Full disclosure, I agree with this guy. The monkeys freak me out. I don't understand why they freak me out, but they do. Harambe Jr. If anything, this monkey was way worse than Harambe because it actually ripped the skin off the little girl. I got drunk at work, stole cheesecake, and ended up passing out in the dressing room. So this happened a few years back. I worked for a high-end clothing store at a stock clerk/order pole. One week they asked me if I would be willing to work the night shift from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. These were very unusual hours, and it was me and 2 other coworkers required to stay. I had another job lined up at the time, so my commitment for the current one was not very strong to begin with. I decided I wanted to make my night a little more interesting, so before I work, I stopped and bought a bottle of whiskey, knowing that my boss would not be working and it would be very relaxed. I ended up drinking a lot more than I should have. I'm great at handling my alcohol, and my friends will tell me that I don't seem even slightly drunk, when on the inside I know exactly how drunk I am. So I pounded a bottle of whiskey in my car right before going in. About an hour and a half into my shift, I was stumbling and knocking stuff over. Luckily, none of my coworkers saw this. I started getting hungry, and I knew that on the 3rd floor there was a little bakery/restaurant that the store owns. I'm not sure why they don't lock the bakery up, but I thought it would be a good idea to go check it out. I ended up hopping over the counter and getting into all of their cheesecakes. I had about 4 slices of 4 different types of cheesecake, and I also helped myself to some Sprite. I was so happy, but I started to feel really tired after. I ended up going into one of the dressing rooms and completely passed out on one of the benches inside. I woke up about 2.5 hours later with my name blaring over the loudspeaker. I thought for sure someone had seen me and reported me. I got to one of my coworkers and they were saying, "Where were you? Where did you go? We've been looking all over for you." I told them I got sick and I was puking in the bathroom and needed to go home. No more questions were asked and I was sent home that night. Never ended up getting caught. You know, it's a little unfair when I see stories like this because I know that their luck stat is just maxed out and I'll never get there. Where are you? Cheesecake. I mean, it'd be a valid reply. Getting drunk and eating cheesecake would probably make me puke. Well, that's because you've got a little baby stomach and you can't eat anything. So I pounded a bottle of whiskey in my car right before going in. Okay. That is a bit of a jarring sentence because how do you just pound a bottle of whiskey? Like that kills you, doesn't it? I fed my boyfriend and his friends dog food. I was in high school. It was the late 80s. I was emancipated already, so I had my own apartment. I also had pay channels because the landlord had a package deal that included my TV. A guy started really hitting on me, whom I really rather liked. It didn't dawn on me that he had only started doing so after I got my own apartment, which meant time away from his restrictive home environment for him. Well, he started spending time at my house, then he started bringing his friends to watch my pay channels with him and ignoring me. The first time they ate my food, I had cooked myself some crock-pot chili for the entire week. It was literally all my meals for the week, to be divvied up into the freezer and eaten as needed. I asked nicely for them not to do it again and explained clearly that it was all my food for the week. They did it again the next weekend when I made myself a lasagna, and this time I yelled at them. My erstwhile boyfriend then slapped me and told me to knock it off. I was interrupting their show, show, you know. I was rather outraged that not one guy, not one, so much as batted an eye about it. Instead of breaking up with him immediately, though, I hatched a plot. I bought 2 cans of Alpo wet dog food and a bag of egg noodles. I made goulash with it in the crock pot and let them eat it. After that, I brought the landlord's dog up. I carefully let him lick each and every bowl, because of course, they didn't wash their dishes after they stole my food either. I placed them into the cabinet as nonchalantly as I could, pretending this was how I always did dishes. I then answered their question about what was the recipe of my delicious food, and placed the 2 open cans of Alpo on the table. Needless to say, they never came back. I took great relish in spreading it around school that they not only ate literal dog food, but they loved it enough to want the recipe. God, the 80s are just, oh yikes, just hitting women? Yeah, I guess. I do think you should have just dropped him right then and there, but I do appreciate the scheming, really figuring out how to get back at him. A-holes deserved it, and I hope your boyfriend didn't hit you after you told him about the food. I would hope that didn't happen, considering they didn't say it in their story. I'm hoping that's the case. Today I learned dog food is delicious. Well, you can only know that if you try it. Are you saying you tried dog food? What's wrong with you? Oh, how the tables turn. Realistically, she probably could have turned the tables by hitting him back, but also the 80s, I don't know if that would have worked out. Cop pulled me over and I called 911 and lied to get out of going to jail. When I was 19, I was running late to work in my tiny POS economy car and on fumes of gas. I didn't come to a complete stop on a right turn. Lights behind me, so I pull over. I know I've barely got any gas at all and was almost to a gas station, hence why I rolled through a stop a little, trying not to have the car die. At the time, around 1995, a new digital phone had come out called VoiceStream, now T-Mobile, and their whole big thing was the phones were digital and not cellular. They were the first phones with caller ID, and one of the big things the salesman had said over and over was since it was digital, the signal can't be triangulated or traced. Not that I cared, but it stuck in my mind. Well, as I give the cop my license, registration, and insurance card, I got an idea. I knew if I was late to work, I was going to lose my job. They were super strict there. So I get an idea, and right after I hand the papers to the cop and he's walking back to his cruiser, I called 911 and tell the operator I just saw a guy with what looked like a shotgun walk into a 7-Eleven that was about 2 blocks away. I confirmed the address, then I hung up. About 30 seconds later, the cop comes sprinting to my car and hands me all my stuff and rushed says, "Come to a complete stop next time." Then peels off to the direction of the store. Pushed my car to the gas station that I'd almost made it to and felt pretty pleased with my ingenuity. Look, I'm not condoning this behavior, but if you're quick enough, you could probably do this. Nice work. I know a gentleman who called in bomb threats to the airport back in the late 70s because he was going to be late. All flights postponed or canceled. God, the 70s had to be crazy. I just casual bomb threats? Yeah, no biggie. My little cousin cracked my iPhone XS Max screen, made my aunt pay $329 knowing I have AppleCare and it only cost me $29. My little cousins are the biggest poops in the world and my aunt pretty much lets them do whatever they want without consequence. They were roughhousing and knocked my phone off the counter, shattering the screen. My closest Apple store is about 2 hours away and it's a huge inconvenience for me to drive there, not to mention the extra gas. So instead of explaining this to her, she's the kind of person who doesn't care about things that don't affect her directly. I told her it was $329 to fix, which is true if I didn't have AppleCare. She wrote me a check for $329 and I only had to pay $29 and I pocketed the extra $300. I consider that my non-disclosed inconvenience fee. I wish I had this level of scam quality because my lord, that's just such a perfect scam. I mean, it was still basically that much if you had to pay for AppleCare. They have a point. $300 was the fee for the emotional damage they caused you. I overcharged over 5,000 people. Back in high school, I used to work the concession stand. In my school, the booth was a little folding table where I would sell water, pop, and chips. To anyone that was a visiting team, I would charge 25 to 50 cents more on the item they wanted to buy, and I would keep it. I ended up making somewhere around $3,000 doing this for my high school career, and no one ever found out because I didn't charge anyone from the home team the same amount. While I don't fully agree with your business strategy, it did work out and you were in high school, so it's fine.
Joke's over, buddy. Give me back my 50 cents.
That's how the mafia works. The snack mafia. I cheated to get my bachelor's and my master's degree. Honestly, I feel feel like a lot of people do it, so let's see your reason. Yeah, I cheated. I didn't write any of my papers. I didn't do any of the work myself. I stole a lot of work, took only classes anyone I knew did, and used all their work for it with minor changes. I made it through 6 years and got 2 degrees. I got a scholarship out of high school by cheating. I cheated during the SAT. I cheated most of my life, and I feel a little bad, but not really. Thanks to a couple real ones for holding it down for me. Wouldn't have made it this far without you. Oh, so yeah, you just completely plagiarized. That's a little extreme, but if it worked, I guess. I had a friend in college mooch off me, and he had a better career afterwards. Now that one kind of hurts, since they actually did the work and they're still not getting great jobs. What college did you go to? Please state your first and last name and date of birth. They just want to look up your academic records. They're not going to report you or anything. I gave a lactose intolerant customer dairy on purpose. I know this sounds weird, but when I worked at Starbucks, there was a regular customer that was very difficult and rude. I was warned of this customer on my first day of training. She came in every morning and would try to rush the workers on doing their job and makes other customers feel uncomfortable. 3 months into working, she came in one morning and caused absolute hell. She was complaining about her drink while one of my coworkers was making the drink. As soon as she got it, she accidentally spills it and asked for a completely different drink. I was so fed up. She wanted a frappuccino. She went to the bathroom while we were making the new order. I switched with my coworker and made the drink. Instead of almond milk, I made the frappuccino with regular milk. The drink was ready by the time she left the bathroom. She takes the drink and takes a sip and didn't complain. 5 hours later, she calls the Starbucks from the hospital, and I was the one who picked up. She got in a car accident trying to rush to a bathroom. She said she shitted her pants. I couldn't be any more happier that she was safe, but got her karma. You know what? Understandable. If you have an unruly customer that thinks they own the place, you can dabble in a bit of dubious behavior. I faked my resume, and now I'm in the throwaway account for obvious reasons. Since I started high school, my parents stopped checking in on my grades, and their mentality was basically, we don't care as long as you get into a good university. And they've carried on this mentality to when I got into college, and they didn't really check on my grades and gave me free reign as long as I majored in the subject they wanted and graduated on time with good grades. Well, basically what happened was that I failed my first year and had to switch my major. I didn't tell them and they didn't ask, so I thought as long as I got myself together and not drop out, I'll be fine. One day, out of the blue, last semester, my dad asked me to write up a resume. I panicked and wrote up a resume, but changed the GPA and major, and made up some stuff and thought I saved myself. Well, this winter break, my dad dropped it on me and told me he knows people in a big company. He gave them my resume and everything, and wanted me to intern there. So I am effed. They'll probably figure it out and let my dad know, and I'll probably get disowned or something. And best case scenario, they don't check and give me the job, and I have to live with the guilt that I got a job that I didn't deserve because of nepotism. This stuff is depressing AF, and I'm typically an easygoing guy, but this whole ordeal is giving me anxiety like nothing else. I feel like an ass for failing and lying to my family about it, and now I'm on the verge of being blown, and I thought maybe making a post here will make me feel better, but I honestly don't know. To my knowledge, a lot of people lie on resumes, like saying they have a degree in this and that just to get the job, but with your parents so close to it, yeah, you're kind of effed. This is gonna be like waxing your ball sack. Bit of an odd analogy, but I understand it. Fake it until you make it. Seemingly they've made it, but they just have to, keep faking it. When I was younger, I saw a lady drop $100. I picked it up and used all of it on Yu-Gi-Oh cards right in front of her. Basically, she dropped the $100 bill in one of the aisles of this game store. I picked it up and I remember wanting to give it back, but I was there to get Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I had recently lost all my good cards to my friend in a bet, so this was a miracle of sorts to make a solid comeback. So I kept it. I thought the woman had left the store, so I went to go purchase my cards. Right as I gave my money to the cashier, she walks up behind me, watching me buy my $100 worth of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. This isn't a normal thing to do. She said nothing though, and I left before she went to go buy her items, so I didn't have to see the look on her face when she realized. There is no doubt in my mind that once she realized she was $100 short, she would make the assumption it was the kid in front of her in line who spent $100 on cards. As much as you should have given the money back, kids will be kids? I once nicked 20 pounds off my parents to buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The addiction hits everyone at some point. Admittedly, I was a bit of a Yu-Gi-Oh head, but I never just had the money to spend, so the addiction never caught on. The intense feeling when she was right behind you. Oh, it had to have been like a horror movie, like hearing a whole soundtrack, just feeling her eyes on the back of your head. This is why I joined this sub. I'm honestly surprised the lady didn't make a comment about your balls dragging on the floor. Well, I know what you're saying, but if she did say that, she'd be in jail, so. For 3 years, I switched my partner's tea in the morning because I couldn't deal with his fake snobbery. When my ex and I started dating, I used to make him a morning cup of tea as a cute gesture, and it stuck for the 3 years that we were together. It's a nice small thing you can do to make someone's day, and it's a nice way to get to know how someone likes things doing. So my morning tea used to be any old tea bag, Yorkshire tea if it was an option, a splash of milk, and the first cup always had a teaspoon of sugar. Every cup after was just tea and milk. My ex, however, had to have a very specific ritual. Thompson's Punjana tea, a teaspoon of milk, and absolutely no sugar. He was adamant that he could tell in a heartbeat when his morning cup of tea, and at the age of 33, he's never liked any other tea other than Fortnum and Mason's Royal Blend. So, in the beginning, when he would stay at mine, I entertained this notion and used to make his morning tea the way he liked. Thompson's Punjana tea, a teaspoon of milk, and absolutely no sugar. He would always thank me and tell me that I make the best cups of tea, and it was nice. 3 times a week didn't kill me, and it was a sweet gesture. Fast forward 3 months when he would spend nearly every day of the week at mine, but not moved in. He was very demanding of his morning ritual, and being a student, I couldn't keep affording to buy that brand of tea. Besides, what was wrong with PG Tips or any non-branded supermarket tea? Tea is tea, after all. So I used to always make his cup of tea with any tea bag, a teaspoon of milk, and no sugar. I was always sure to only make it when he was in the shower or still in bed so he could never catch me out. And initially, he was dubious and he was always asking to make sure it was Thompson's Punjana tea. He used to call it by its full name to emphasize how good it was. After a few trials of different teas, I finally found that sweet point where he couldn't taste the difference. I would drink it with him, and as he sipped, would go on about how you can taste the quality and that there is really no other tea like it. When we moved in with each other, it was a lot harder to disguise the fact that I was keeping the same box of tea and just filling it with regular tea bags, so I had to be a bit more clever. At the time, I was studying at college, so I was in control of weekly food shops and only really wanted to go twice a week to minimize costs, so we had more to spend on meals out. I used to buy 1 bag of his tea and 2 bags of mine a week and keep them in the drinks cupboard. When it came to making his in the morning, I would take one of his tea bags and put it in my pocket, give him one of mine instead, and I used to give my tutors at college his tea to drink during the day. He would always comment that I run out quicker of my tea bags because of the quality, and that with Punjana, 1 bag is enough for a considerable amount of time. Little did he know. This went on for a couple of years, and I never told anyone about it out of fear that he would find out, as after all, he really couldn't tell, so why ruin the fun? It was saving me money, and it was sort of amusing. I never let him make a cup of tea unless I was away, so he never really had to find out. After we split up, we remained good friends, and I've spent some time with him too in our old flat. Every time I visit, he always asks me to make a cup of tea the way I used to for old time's sake, because everyone he's been with or dated after me can never make it taste the way I did. He even says that when he makes it himself with Punjana that he could never make it taste right, and that I was some sort of special tea maker. I still haven't told him. I can feel the Britishness in this post. Yeah, didn't want to bring it up because it's obvious. What Americans really drink tea? Tea is tea. A certain island nation just died. If you post this in r/t, there is going to be some riots happening. Do people actually care this much about tea? I guess I'm just uninformed, but it feels weird. When I nannied, I would read the journal of the mom. I was only 20 years old and I nannied for this little baby boy. The mom seemed off. She would sleep the entire time I was there in the mornings or go on 3-hour runs, or sometimes would just go about her business around the house, completely ignoring me. One time, we both sat in the living room while the baby was sleeping in his room. I was reading a book, studying, and she sat there eating McDonald's and watching her show. She did not say a word to me the entire time. Well, one day when she was out, I snooped around and found her journal. I read the whole thing, then got sad for her. She was so unhappy in her marriage and in life. I ended up working for her for 3 years and we became close. But that first year was so uncomfortable and awkward. In retrospect, it seems very obvious that she was suffering suffering from post-pregnancy depression. Gonna say, not the coolest thing to invade their privacy like that, but I guess it worked out and you're friends? I call fake orders into a pizza place to get free pizzas. My husband works at a popular pizza chain. We'll call it Piece of Butt for the sake of rhyming. If orders are messed up or carryout orders don't show, the employees get to take the food home. Sometimes I order pizzas under fake names and give the numbers of local businesses as callback numbers, and then purposefully never show up to pay for it. 9 times out of 10, my husband brings home the pizza I ordered. This is sinful pizza, yes, I know, but sin pizza tastes better than honest pizza inexplicably. As a pizza boy myself, I can't confirm or deny if this works, but it does depend on the manager if they'll let you take the pizza, because sometimes they can be weird about it. I got fired from a pizza place when I was in college for giving a burnt pizza to a homeless old lady. It's so awesome to be punished for doing a relatively good deed. The secret ingredient is crime, and it tastes so savory and pizza-like. I lied to a blind neighbor and told him I moved away. Many years ago, I was standing on one of my balconies when a taxi driver was obnoxiously blowing his horn out front and yelling for a blind man to walk towards my voice from his own townhouse. That direction was toward traffic. My roommate and I went down and helped him to the taxi and scolded the driver for being so rude. I made the mistake of giving the blind neighbor my phone number so that I could give him a ride in the future. Then the phone calls came and never stopped. And when I gave him a ride, he would ask for various detours. I'm very calculated by nature. If he had told me beforehand where he wanted to go, it would be cool. But no, we'd be driving along and he'd throw in 2 to 3 extra places on each ride. And it came to be every day that he wanted rides. And he'd even call me to remind me to give him a ride. Not that was ever late or backed out. Finally, I had enough, so I gauged how blind he was. His response was that he was blind as a bat. A week or 2 after he said that, I told him I had a job interview in the next city. A week after that, I told him I got the job and was moving away in a month. After I moved away, it was strange as hell walking by him in silence as he stood on the sidewalk. Kind of a morally gray situation, but I understand why you did it because seemingly the guy was taking advantage of your kindness. I bet he could smell you and knew. Okay, not all blind people are Daredevil, alright? I hope he doesn't see this post. We're just getting the easy ones, huh? Plot twist, he isn't blind, but is going along with your lie to save face on his lie. While it is possible, it probably isn't. You know, I'm just glad everybody was able to get that off their chest.